Digital platforms have shed their status as neutral communication tools. They operate as active, adaptive environments that continuously reconfigure themselves in response to user behavior. When we scroll a feed or click a recommendation, we experience this as a conscious choice. The architecture of the interface is designed to maintain this illusion of agency. However, the observable data points towards something else entirely, a loop of behavior that closely mimics a compulsive, pre-reflective biological drive. Traditional behavioral psychology, which relies on conscious reinforcement and voluntary decision-making, cannot adequately explain the depth of this mediation. The stickiness of modern platforms operates below the threshold of conscious thought. To understand it, we require an ontological critique of how these systems interface with the human organism. Grasping the true nature of platform power means accepting a mechanical view of human subjectivity. If we possess a biological system designed to seek and anticipate, that system contains structural vulnerabilities. It can be externally hacked. Mapping this vulnerability requires synthesizing three distinct fields of study. We must combine the predictive mechanics of computational neuroscience, the biological drive mechanisms mapped by affective neuroscience, and the structural models of desire detailed in Lacanian psychoanalysis. In Lacanian theory, human subjectivity relies on an external symbolic structure called the Big Other. In the digital environment, the algorithm has usurped this position. It functions as an observing instance that continuously interprets our actions and organizes our social reality. The exact biological target of this numerical Big Other is the seeking system, the neuroaffective network identified by Jaak Panksepp that drives mammalian curiosity. By colonizing this subcortical system, the algorithm breaks the unified subject down into a dividual entity, a governable collection of behavioral traces. Platforms operate by managing the brain's innate drive to minimize prediction errors. By manipulating the gap between anticipation and reward, they extract surplus jouissance, converting repetitive psychic tension into quantifiable informational rent. This synthesis reveals the modern digital condition for what it is. The open-ended human search for meaning has undergone a technical subsumption, replaced entirely by a political economy built on statistical expectations. To understand the mechanism of capture, we have to start at the neurobiological bedrock. According to neuroscientist Karl Friston's free energy principle, the brain is an epistemic engine. Its primary biological imperative is to survive by minimizing informational surprise, or variational free energy, in a highly unpredictable world. The brain accomplishes this through hierarchical generative modeling. It constantly generates guesses about what is happening outside the skull, and compares those guesses to the sensory data coming in. The process of bridging the gap between internal predictions and external reality is called active inference. This creates a tight, continuous loop between the organism and its environment. The system only has two ways to resolve a discrepancy between what it expects and what it actually senses. The first vector is perception. When confronted with surprising sensory data, the organism updates its internal beliefs. It alters its model of the world to better explain the information it just received. The second vector is action. If the organism doesn't change its mind, it changes the world. It manipulates the external environment so that the incoming sensory data matches the predictions it already holds. All human exploration, curiosity, and desire stem from this mechanical necessity. We are biologically driven to act on the world to reduce the discrepancy between what we expect and what we experience, a metric known as reward prediction error. But here we encounter a structural paradox. If the brain were ever perfectly successful, if it managed to zero out prediction error entirely, the organism would achieve total minimization of free energy. In thermodynamics, this is the nirvana principle. In biology, it is stasis. It is the end of the psyche. A system that perfectly predicts its environment has no reason to act, explore, or seek. Total prediction match results in systemic inactivity. For life and consciousness to persist, absolute convergence must fail. There must be a structural inconsistency that keeps the system open and prevents the epistemic engine from closing its loop. Jacques Lacan identified this structural necessity decades ago. He called it the objet petit, the ungraspable remainder that falls away when a subject enters language. It is an engineered void that ensures a perpetual gap between anticipation and fulfillment. This void is the formal cause of desire. It is the glitch that keeps the mammalian seeking system locked in a state of metastable tension, constantly driving the organism forward in pursuit of an object it can never fully integrate. Human life actively depends on this structural void. Without it, the epistemic engine would simply reach the silence of completion and stop. This brings us to the material reality of digital infrastructure. The tech industry has empirically discovered this exact biological mechanic and built vast, centralized architectures to farm it. Algorithms are not designed to resolve your desire. Giving you exactly what you want would zero out your prediction error and end your session. Platform profit relies entirely on capturing the seeking system's error minimization dynamic and deliberately keeping it unresolved. To bypass your conscious defenses, the algorithm targets the sub-symbolic register. It operates in the lost half-second before conscious reflection, harvesting microscopic behavioral residues, scroll speeds, micro-hesitations, and click latencies. These are the actomes of the digital unconscious. These asemantic digital traces are then vectorized. The machine clusters them to construct highly accurate predictive models of your specific hidden mode of enjoyment, effectively mapping the contours of your internal void. The platform functions as an immobile motor. It sits passively while metabolizing your internal psychic tension, your hesitation, and your restlessness, converting them directly into scalable predictive capital. Modeling a user's tendencies is merely the baseline. To maintain engagement, the algorithm must actively engineer the failure of the active inference loop, preventing the system from reaching a state of convergence. It achieves this through the precise injection of structural uncertainty. By feeding you variable rewards and intermittent novelty, the platform manufactures sudden, unpredictable spikes in your prediction error. This is the slot machine model of variable reinforcement applied at scale. Unpredictable notifications, polarizing content, and infinite feeds are deliberately deployed to generate high-amplitude spikes in reward prediction error. Your brain's seeking system goes into overdrive trying to model the chaos. Every time you scroll to resolve this artificial uncertainty, you expend psychic energy. The platform captures that persistent dopaminergic readiness, your continuous, eager anticipation, as informational rent. The algorithm has successfully assumed the role of the big other, but instead of dictating laws or moral codes, it governs the subject by modulating probabilistic uncertainty. The economic logic here is absolute. The platform extracts financial value from the precise impossibility of your satisfaction. It takes your structural lack and reifies it into a highly optimized digital commodity, the perpetually out-of-reach next video. The algorithmic Big Other operates as a hybrid structure. It possesses the symbolic authority to organize social meaning and recognition, while simultaneously deploying statistical prediction to modulate your curiosity and desire. Lacan termed this dynamic surplus jouissance, or surplus enjoyment. It is the repetitive, compulsive loop of anticipation that never finds its target. Today, the platform industrializes this repetition, metabolizing your biological drive into continuous profit. The contemporary digital subject is no longer driven by a meaningful historical search. They have been reduced to a biological processor, trapped in an asemantic loop of prediction errors controlled by a corporation. We are left with a stark ontological reality. The algorithmic infrastructure has become a concrete, transcendental machine. It actively dictates the conditions of possible experience and structures the field within which our desires can emerge. This table outlines the scope of the capture. Biological instinct is transmuted into a technical drive. The platform engineers synthetic voids, harvests your sub-symbolic residues, and extracts your resulting surplus jouissance as informational rent. This technical stabilization replaces the subject's internal scansion of hesitations with an automated recursive machine. The capacity for reflection and the ability to live in non-calculable time are abated, leaving the human eye orphaned within its own vectorized traces. The algorithmic loop replaces the symbolic search for meaning with a closed circuit of statistical expectation. Subjective enunciation is subsumed by predictive accuracy. Reality itself, at the fundamental level of the biological drive, has been privatized. Human historical existence has been converted, quietly and completely, into a mathematical optimization for corporate profit.